Hey, you all. Welcome to the podcast. My name's Cameron Buckner, and this is the Dixiecryptid podcast. Doing things a little different. I thought I'd record some of these on OBS, and you can actually watch me read these. I don't know why you'd be interested in that, but I'm just desperate to do something new and different, and so I thought I'd give this a whirl. But welcome to the channel. I don't even know how many stories we're going to have in this video, but it's I've got a whole pile of great stories, and we're just gonna dig in and tell some stories. So I hope you guys enjoy it. All right, here we go. Okay, this is a little bit different way of doing things, but like I said, I just wanted to try some things, just something different. I don't know, just to spice it up a little bit. And the stories I'm about to share with you, I'm just opening them as we go. So I'm reading them raw, so I'm probably going to make mistakes and have to reread sentences, but I don't know. Let's see how this works. It's kind of fun for me, so let's give it a whirl. This is an email from someone who wants to be anonymous, and that's no problem at all. And I will tell you this, it happens in Maine, because I see that in the first sentence. When I was a little girl growing up in Maine, I experienced a few things that are similar to the stories you tell on your channel. In the late 1960s, my dad purchased 20 acres of land along the southern coast of Maine, several miles from any town, state park along the Kennebec River, and that is where I grew up from the age of 3. I spent a lot of time wandering the deer trails and jeep trails and the paths that cut through the woods surrounding our property and the houses down the road that were closer to the state park. Sometimes we would see as many as 20 deer in our backyard. One late autumn afternoon in 1978, I went out back and followed a long jeep trail to a huge tree that was so tall we could see it from our backyard. Winter was closing in, and I knew it would soon be too cold to be out climbing trees, but I wanted one more chance to climb my favorite tree. I made my way up the jeep trail behind our house, through a densely forested woods, to a deer trail I knew would take me to the spot. And as I walked along, I became aware of the sound of my own breathing. The woods had become unusually quiet and still in the late afternoon. I approached the tree and began to climb. I was about halfway up when an uncomfortable feeling came over me. I felt exposed and vulnerable. It was a big tree, and even halfway I was pretty high up, so I looked around from one side to the other. I couldn't see anything in the light of the approaching dusk, but I could not shake the feeling that I was being watched. No one lived close enough to be trespassing on our property, nor had I ever seen strangers in our woods before. Even so, I felt so uncomfortable that I abandoned my climb and I started to walk back to the jeep trail. Not far down the trail, I began to hear something rustling in the leaves in the dense tree cover beside me. I stopped to listen, but as soon as I did, it stopped too. It started walking again, and this time a little faster, and the leaves began to rustle again. I stopped 3 or 4 times, and each time the sound stopped when I did and started again when I started. By now, I was completely unnerved. At the time, my only thought was, what is someone doing up here? I got so scared that once I got halfway down the trail and I ran. I ran as fast as I could until I hit the opening into our back lawn where our garden was planted, and I was within sight of the house. It didn't occur to me at the time that the eerie silence, the spooky feeling of being watched, and the sound of some unseen something escorting me out of the woods might be something other than my overactive imagination. 2 or 3 years later, I discovered a teepee-type structure on the edge of the woods near that same big tree. I assumed my brothers had built it, but when I asked them about it, they had no idea what it was. They thought it looked cool, but figured it was the work of someone else. Since the woods and brush were too dense to walk through in that spot, no one ever pursued it. I never told anyone about the first incident, and before long, I was too busy climbing trees and exploring the woods again. And I grew up and I eventually moved away. Only recently has it occurred to me that it might have been something else, that there might really be something out there. Now I think I might have interrupted something while it was hunting, and they were letting me know they wanted me out of the way. I never actually saw anything, but I certainly felt it and I heard it. That was enough for me, and I'm glad I trusted my instincts and promptly left the area. I wish we still owned the property. Knowing what I know now, I would love to go back and explore a little. The whole area has been built up quite a bit since then. I've heard of a few sightings a few miles west of where our house was, and it makes me wonder. Okay, to the woman who wrote this, I think it's a woman. Yep, she said she was a little girl. I'm sorry that I messed up some of your sentences, but I kind of wanted you all to see how this goes when I actually narrate one of these. I mess up all the time, and this editing software that I use is easy to take out the mess ups and replace the new sentence. But I don't know. I'll do this every once in a while, and we'll see how it goes. It's a lot more work actually syncing the audio with the video, but I'm going to give it a try. Just trying to do something different, something fun for me. It's just for me. But to this story, it's a great story. Nothing really happened. But nothing really has to happen for it to be interesting. She had some weird experiences in the woods. She heard things that were not natural to the woods, and she probably didn't think about it for years. And now, listening to some of the stories that we do and other people do, she's starting to put two and two together. And that happens a lot. That happens a lot in this genre or this topic. So, thank you very much for sending the story. It was great. I really appreciate it. And we'll move on to another one. Okay, here's an email from Edward. It's a story from Texas, and it's pretty interesting. It's a possible Bigfoot sighting or possible Bigfoot encounter. I live in North... Betsy, what are you doing, girl? We'll get up here and see everybody. Come here. Come on. Come here. Come on. Get up here. Get up here. Come on. Come on. Oh, she won't jump. All right. Go lay down, baby. Go lay down. Go. Constantly trying to not roll over her tail. She lays right under me. I live in north central Texas, where 20 years ago I worked as a park ranger for Texas Parks and Wildlife in the third most visited state park in Texas. Every year we held a public deer hunt in the park, choosing 20 hunters by lottery. 10 of them were selected to hunt the last week of December, and 10 were to hunt the first week of January. During the hunts, the back half of the park was closed to camping. The back third of the 3,000-acre park had no trails or no camping sites. On the west, the back, and the east sides of the park stood an old military installation that had been in place since the 1920s. The National Guard still performed training exercises there once a month. That meant the deer had grown accustomed to having people around. With the rifle range bordering the park, they were also used to hearing rifle fire. We started feeding the deer and putting out blinds in mid-October. We wanted them to be used to seeing our trucks in the blinds. There were mountain lions in the park, but even though it is legal to hunt them in Texas, the superintendent, who has total control over the hunts, instructed all hunters not to kill the big cats inside the park. I always got the 4 hunters that went the farthest back. It was up on a bluff overlooking a big creek and a large abandoned rock quarry. If anyone else went that far back, they were not aware of it, since we did not normally patrol that area. It was the 5th year of the hunt when it happened. We always put the hunters in their blinds at 5:30 a.m. We would pick them up at lunch for a 2-hour break or to run to town if they wanted. Some would choose to stay in their blinds. And at 2 o'clock, we took them back out, Then we'd pick them up for the day at 6 p.m., dark. The first day, I put my hunters in their blinds and instructed them not to wander away from them, but to wait for the rangers to show up and help them look for any deer. It had iced over during the day with light snow. When I went to get them at noon, my first hunter had shot a deer, but had only wounded it. The deer had a broken leg and was bleeding. We followed it into the brush line, but then decided to take the hunters back to the hunt station while we returned to find the deer. The ice and snow on the ground made it easy to follow the deer's trail. We tracked it for 30 yards through the brush until we came to one of the largest cedar trees in the park. From one side of the drip line to the other had to be 20 feet, with the branches at least 5 feet off the ground. The drag line and blood stopped at the drip line of the tree. Betsy's scratching. I instructed one ranger to go to the right and another to the left while I looked under the tree. With all three of us looking, we found nothing, not a single track, print, a drag line, or a drop of blood. There was no indication of it going under the tree, around the tree, or coming out from under it. The deer was just gone. It was as if it had just disappeared. We never found any trace of it or came up with a reasonable explanation for how it could have happened. If you've ever experienced anything like that in your life, let me know. I still get goosebumps just writing this down. Oh man, that is pretty creepy. You know that deer is supposed to be there. There's no track. There's tracks in. There's sign and spoor and everything in, but nothing out. So where did it go? Maybe it was above you in the tree. Maybe a Bigfoot had it under its arm and he, I don't know, cloaked into the tree or something. Maybe that cloaking is a thing. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but that is a creepy story. I mean, and he said it just gives him goosebumps just writing it down. This was a good story, and I love these types of stories because, you know, they don't all have to be just totally action-packed, guns blazing. They can be creepy just in their own. I get stories from Neoma. Neoma looks over all these stories, and by the way, Neoma, if you're watching, you're awesome. You're so awesome. She edits these and rearranges the sentences. So it follows my speech pattern perfectly. I don't know if she does that on purpose or if her and I speak in the same, same way? I don't know. But she does such a good job. So thanks. I love you. But she tells me all the time, she'll send me a stack of 10 stories and she'll say, this one, it's not very scary, but it's the sounds, or it's the missing evidence, or it's the item that should have been there that wasn't, or the item that wasn't there that should have been there that just gives her the willies. And she loves those kind of stories too. And I think a lot of you guys listening do too. So anyway, that's my commentary on some of these real subtle stories, and they're great. But Edward, thank you for sending this in. It's a great story from Texas. A lot of activity in Texas. He's a ranger for the Parks and Wildlife Commission. I didn't know. You guys act like outfitters. I didn't know park game wardens and park rangers and people like that really, even on a quota hunt like this, were so good to the hunters. I mean, you take them out to the blinds, you bring them in. I guess if you want to save your park from being rutted up and torn up, that's probably the best way to do it. And I'm guessing these rangers enjoy doing that. It gives them a full day of, really a full week of being in the woods, taking hunters out, meeting new people. So I've never heard of this before. That's really interesting. So Edward, thanks for the story, and I really appreciate you. All right, let's go to another one. Okay, changing camera angles, covering up the Bigfoot, not covering up the Bigfoot, different things in the background, all different angles of all the junk in my office. You see how creative I am? It's amazing what you can do with a camera. And I don't really like being in front of a camera, but I just want to do something different. Try to sync audio with video, and that seems to be going pretty good so far. So we're going to do one more story. And then after this, I want to have a little talk and tell you guys a little bit about the channel and what we've got coming up. I'm still having so much fun doing this. These little different things like this make it extra fun just to try and learn new things. But let's get to a Kansas story. Now, we don't get many stories from Kansas, but this man's name is Nolan. He claims the story is true, and this is pretty good. Pretty good. I grew up in a farming town in southwestern Kansas. It was a flat area with very few trees, and the only exception being the thick brush along the Cimarron River about 10 miles north of town. A little before Christmas in 1976, when I was 17, my cousin came down for a visit. We both loved to hunt, so I borrowed my brother's .22 and my cousin borrowed his dad's. We were mainly planning to hunt rabbits and prairie dogs. People don't like prairie dogs because they mow down the wheat crops. My dad was a farmer, and we had one field that was particularly infested with prairie dogs. That's where we were headed. We didn't have any luck hunting, so after a while, my cousin and I decided to find a place where we could have some target practice. I knew of an old junkyard on the bank of the river. The Cimarron River is usually just flat, sandy, with a dry bed. Every few years it might have water, but if you dug down a foot or so, you could always find water. Because the water source is so shallow, there's a lot of big trees and brush that grow along the banks. To get to the junkyard, I had to park my dad's truck on one side of the river and walk across the bed. I got out and started to load my rifle. My cousin stayed in the truck where he was busy loading his clip. As I stood there, I heard something walking on the opposite side of the river. It seemed very heavy and powerful. Every step was like the beating of a bass drum, and it sounded like it was crushing everything it stepped on. What's more, it sounded like it was walking on 2 feet. This scared me a little. I looked at my cousin and asked, "Did you hear that?" "I didn't hear anything," he said. He probably didn't because he was inside the truck and preoccupied with loading his rifle. Well, I told myself it was nothing. At the most, maybe it was just some cattle. We found a couple of old cans about halfway across the river and stopped to shoot at them. My cousin was taking aim for another shot when he stopped and looked over at the opposite bank. "What's wrong? Why'd you stop?" I asked. He kept his eyes on the trees as he said, "I thought I saw something moving through the brush." And then he looked at me and added, "It was probably just my imagination," and we went back to shooting. Once we'd made a sufficient number of holes in the cans, we started to make our way to the junkyard. We were almost to the bank when a giant branch from a cottonwood tree was suddenly ripped down about 20 yards from us. This branch was so big that I doubted 25 men with a rope could have pulled it down. Startled by the sound and shaken by the thought of what could have been big enough to pull down such a large branch, my cousin and I looked at each other in disbelief. "What was that?" I asked. We were both too stunned to verbalize our thoughts on the matter, but I was ready to go. "We need to back up slowly to the truck," I told him. My cousin had other ideas. He said he wanted to shoot in the direction of the tree branch. He raised his gun to fire, but I stopped him. "Anything big enough to tear down a branch that big isn't going to be hurt by a .22, I told him. "It'll only make him mad, and as close as we are, he'll probably kill us both before we can get away." My cousin saw the wisdom in my words, and we began to back up. We made it about 30 yards when it came crashing down the opposite bank, running faster than anything I've ever seen. It must have cleared 200 yards in about 8 seconds. And even more terrifying, it was running through the heavy underbrush, ripping and tearing branches off the trees as it ran. We didn't wait to get a visual on it. We just ran back to the truck as quickly as we could. When we turned back around, we couldn't see where it was, so my cousin decided he wanted to shoot some rounds across the river to scare it. I started to tell him not to do it, but he fired 6 shots before I could stop him. That was a big mistake. Crack! We jumped as we heard the sound of another branch breaking, this time on our side of the river. That was followed by the unmistakable sound of this whatever it was coming our way. We jumped into the truck as fast as we could and got out of there quick. This event scared me so bad, I've never gone back to that river again. Like most people who've had an encounter, my cousin and I tried to tell others what happened to us, but no one believed us. We were always accused of making it all up just to scare people. I never really saw it, but I saw what it could do, and I'm certain it was a Bigfoot. What else could have torn through those trees like that? Nolan, I agree with you. What else could tear through those trees like that? It's not like, I guess it could have been a bull. You know, bulls are strong. I mean, they're massively strong, and I've seen them just get mad and they'll bull their cows around and I've had one get mad at me before, and I don't trust livestock. Horses don't like me, cows don't like me, so I avoid them when I possibly can. But so it could have been a bull. I don't know. Other than that, I would say it's a Bigfoot. It's got to be something like a Bigfoot or some kind of monster. So this was a great story. It was exciting, and it was in Kansas, and we don't get many stories from Kansas. So I really appreciate this. Nolan, thanks for sending it. You're awesome, dude. And you're a good writer, too. Good writer. Thank you. Okay, I thought I would just take a few minutes and talk to you guys about the channel. I don't really know where to start, but this is not bad news or good news or anything. I just wanted to explain to some people. And by the way, if anybody's watching, there's no more stories after this, so you can go to the next video unless you're interested in what's going on with this channel. But the channel's going fine. It's everything's going great. The only problem is the time available to me to do it. When COVID hit back last February or March, work really slowed down for me. It came to a screeching halt. Matter of fact, the job that I'm working on now was supposed to start last March, but it didn't start until a year later. And so from March to almost for a year, I didn't have just a ton of things to do. I was making a living. I was working all the time, and I had a lot more time to work on this podcast. And then March hit, and I thought this job that I was working on was going to last for a couple of months. And so March and April went by, and then May came up, and they kept adding to it. June came up, they added to it. July, it kept going strong, and it's a very important project. It's one that that I didn't want to slack on. And I love the people I work for, and they are so good to me, and they're easy to work with. And so what I've done for really since last spring is put out an average of, if you just added it all up, it's less than one podcast per week. However, the good news is that job is winding down, and I've still got some things to do. It's like this coming week is going to be a busy week. And I think through the next week or 10 days, and I've told my friends in Neoma and D.A. Roberts and other people that Will Jevning, who I want to do more interviews with, and all those people who I have opportunities to talk to and work with, that, look, I can't do this because I've just got too much work. I'm working 12 hours a day, and then that doesn't leave much time for family. And so I try to do on my free time with, the grandkids when they're over, and hang out with my wife. And I kind of dig her. I kind of like hanging out with her. And although we don't do much, we just kind of sit around and but just being present, is being there beside them is important to me. And then I steal Sunday morning, and I'm out here doing this, trying this new thing out, and with this camera, and I'm stealing time on Sunday morning to do this. But again, the good news is that stuff is going to wind down soon, and there's another big job coming up that is with this my same customer that I've been working for the past year. And I don't just work for one contractor. I work for several. But this guy's kept me so covered up, I just have to turn work away, which is a good position to be in. It's a great position to be in. And but from now until February or next March, after the next 10 days or so, I hope to not have anything to do. And I'm going to probably continue to turn work down because I really want to pour myself into this podcast. I love doing this so much. And you can see my face when I'm talking about this in this crazy, weird video, that I enjoy this so much you can't imagine. And I'm probably a little obsessive on it because even when I'm working, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about what can I do next? And I'm thinking about my next storyline on Steve Lilly. Yes, I'm working on a novel. It's probably about 25% done. I thought I had it about half done, but I had to scrap half of it. And so there's so many things I want to do. I'll be 60 years old in a year, and I'm getting to the I'm pushing towards the tail end of my life, and there's a lot of things I want to do. Lord willing, if he'll let me, I want to write books. I want to continue to do this podcast and tell stories because people enjoy stories. I love stories. I know how I love stories, and I know that other people enjoy stories. And that's, I really want to be a storyteller and a better storyteller. And I think I've improved. I've been doing this 3 years. Next month, it'll be 3 years. This podcast or this YouTube channel is three years old. And I think I've improved, but I'm not all the way there. I've done 3, 4, 5 audio books. I've got 6 I'm scheduled to do. I've got people who've contacted me, want me to do more, and I just can't take on. I can't take on any more until I get done with what's on my plate. So that's what I want to do. I want to spend all that time that I have off and do those things. There's no money in it. There's no money in any of this. It's just, there's a little bit. I mean, there's enough to keep me interested in it. The money's not necessarily the gold. It's but when you get paid for doing something you love, that's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. So there's that. That's what's going on with the channel. And I'm so excited that, hopefully through the fall and as the leaves change and the seasons change and things kind of take on a different form, I'll be taking on a different form too with what I do on a daily basis. And I also look forward to starting this big job again in March. It's another massive project, and my customer seems to be happy with me, and I want to keep them that way. And I'm from the school where if there's work out there and you can grab it, you go get it. You don't, I'm very thankful to have the work that I have. Don't ever misunderstand that. I'm very thankful for my customers and the relationships I've developed over the years with people. So there's that about the channel. I'm looking forward to the next few months of doing this. I think I mentioned in a podcast a couple of weeks ago that my big yellow lab died. Big chunk. I've had him for 15 years. And he's just a great dog. He was a great dog. And I got him when he was just a year old. He was a full-grown dog, but I got him when he was a year old. So I got to spend 14 years with him. And he and I were together 24/7. Unless we were on vacation, he was with me 24/7. And he died back in June. And I didn't want to make a big deal out of it on this YouTube channel because I don't know. I just get tired of people trying to garner sympathy from their audience on YouTube. It just seems kind of cheesy, It's just, deal with your own stuff on your own. YouTubers, and quit begging for money and quit trying to garner sympathy and maybe trying to get money that way and things like that. I don't know. I mean, keep doing it if you want to. Other YouTubers, if that's your thing, but I just, whenever I hear that, I'm just like, come on, man. You don't know me. You really don't know me. You didn't know my dog. You've never laid your hands on him. You never saw me interact with him, but it was beautiful. He was a great friend, and I'm sorry. It's the first time I've been upset about it since about after a couple of weeks. But he is a great dog, and he was always with me, and he loved me, and I loved him, and he knew it. And so we got back from our vacation. He died while we were on vacation. I'm sorry I couldn't be with him, but I just couldn't. We can't pick those times when dogs or family members or whatever, when they leave. When it's their time, and sometimes you're not there. But when we came back, we had just my little brown brindle dog. I might put a video up at the end of this so you can see her. Her name is Roxy, and we came back and she looked horrible. I told April, I said, "Good grief, we're going to lose 2 dogs in the same month." And we took her to the vet, and come to find out she had diabetes. And so we've started her on insulin therapy, and we've changed her diet, and she's come back 100%. And we're so happy. She was slow and lethargic, and she showed all the signs of diabetes, which I didn't know what that was. My wife did. And my wife actually said before we took her, she said, "I bet you she's got diabetes." So we give her a insulin shot twice a day. And now look, I'm not telling you this about my dog because I need your advice on my dog. My dogs are the best cared for dogs on the planet. There are no dogs anywhere better cared for than my dogs. And then we have 3 others. We have Betsy, who's a rescue, and Hank, who's a semi-rescue, and then Lily, who's my little pug. Hank is a Mexican hairless terrier. Lily is our little pug, who my daughter is from a litter with my daughter's pugs, and from a litter, and she pretty much handed that dog to us and said, "You all are taking this dog. She needs a good home." She's about half size of a normal pug, and she's a little princess. She thinks she owns the house. She's a lap dog. And so I'm not normally a small dog person, but we do have 2 small dogs, and they're just happy as they can be, and they're fun, and they're dogs. And we treat our dogs like dogs, and they appreciate that. We don't treat them like people, and they really like that. So anyway, I wanted to touch on those 2 things to let you know. And please, even though I said I don't need your advice on my dogs, I know somebody is typing in advice for me with my dog with diabetes right now. Just stop. Just don't do it. I didn't ask for your advice. I appreciate that you care enough about my dog to do that, but it's not necessary. She's 14 years old, and she's got diabetes, and she's on insulin therapy, and her diet's changed, and she's doing fine. But I just wanted to give you an update in case you care, in case you care about the dogs. And so that's what's going on. So, Lee, I tell you what I would like comments on is, how do you like this format with me reading the stories face-to-face with you? Do you like that, or do you just like the audio experience? I'm just curious. I want to try some different things, and because I know I'm getting into this era where I'm going to be pouring myself into this, and I want to try to get better. If this seems to be a fun thing to do, at least on YouTube, being a visual platform that, will do something visual. And I always run, I'm not going to stop doing it the way I did it. I'm just going to do this every once in a while. So, but I'm just curious what you think. And so let me know in the comments what you think about this. And that would be great, just to get your feedback on that. I am asking for that. So, all right, well, I'll wind this up. I hope you enjoyed the stories. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. And I love this audience that watches this podcast. I'll never be able to show enough gratitude or to tell you how sincere I am when I say, thank you so much for encouraging me to do more and do better I want to apologize for being virtually absent for 6 months, but I'm really looking forward to getting back to 3-4 podcasts a week. I would love to do that, finish my book. You've heard all that. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. And thank you for watching, and we'll end this now. You guys have a great week. It's a beautiful Sunday out. It's kind of hot. I'm going to get out and do some yard work. I got to get outside and get some sun. Y'all have a good week. We'll see you on the next video. Thanks.